We have to manage the frequency, Sarah said. If too many people come, they bring their own noise. They bring their anxiety, their digital static. The mountain won't like it. Then we change the rules, Elias replied, standing up and placing a hand on her shoulder. No more than 50 people at a time. No phones allowed past the gate, and if they want to hear the song, they have to work for it. They have to spend a day cleaning the trails or helping with the water lines. It was a radical idea, but it worked. The diner became a work-study sanctuary. It discouraged the casual tourists and attracted those who truly cared about the legacy. One afternoon, a woman arrived who stood out from the crowd. She was older, with a face that looked like it had been carved from the same granite as the peaks. She didn't have a backpack. She only had a small, leather-bound journal. "I'm looking for the Hyatt girl," she said to Sarah at the counter. "I'm Sarah. How can I help you?" The woman placed the journal on the formica. "My name is Elena. My grandmother was the woman the Dutchman loved, the one he left the map for." The room seemed to grow cold. Sarah felt a jolt from the iron key at her neck. "The Dutchman's gold," Sarah breathed. "Everyone thinks it's gone." "The gold was never metal," Elena said, her eyes flashing. "The gold was a secret about the frequency. My grandmother knew that the mountain wasn't just a place. It was a transmitter, and she knew that one day the transmitter would need a new operator." She pushed the journal towards Sarah. "This belongs to you now. It's the final part of the song, the part Alice didn't live long enough to record." Chapter 11. The Water's Secret. Elias and Sarah spent the night in the basement studio, poring over Elena's journal. It wasn't a diary, it was a manual. It contained intricate sketches of the hydraulic systems within the mountain, the same ones Elias had been trying to map with modern sensors. But these sketches were different. They were based on musical notation. "Look at this," Elias said, his finger tracing a diagram of the Whispering Canyons. "This isn't a map of a mine, it's a map of an organ. The canyons are the pipes, and the wind is the bellows. But the water is the blood." The journal explained that the gilded dust wasn't gold dust. It was a specific type of crystalline sand that only formed when the water from the spring reached a certain temperature and vibration. When this sand was stirred by the wind, it created the amber glow Sarah had seen in the cave. "It's a perpetual energy system," Elias whispered, awestruck. "The mountain creates its own light and sound through the movement of the water. It's the most efficient battery on Earth." "And the Dutchman knew?" Sarah asked. "He didn't just know. He was trying to protect it," Elias said. He realized that if people found out, they would try to harvest the sand. They would drain the water to get the gold, and the mountain would die. As they talked, the connection between them deepened. It wasn't just a shared mission, it was a shared resonance. Sarah looked at Elias, the way his hair fell over his eyes, the way his hands moved with precision and care, and she realized she wasn't alone in the fortress anymore. "I was afraid I'd have to do this by myself," Sarah admitted, her voice low, "like Maya, like Alice." Elias took her hand. His skin was warm, his grip steady. Maya had Mel. Alice had the Dutchman. "You have me, Sarah. The water doesn't flow in a straight line. It flows in a circle. We're the circle." They kissed then, a slow, deep resonance that felt like the earth settling after a storm. It wasn't a romance of Hollywood movies. It was a romance of the desert, fierce, quiet, and enduring. Outside, the neon sign buzzed. The mountains stood tall in the moonlight, their secrets safe for another night. But in the distance, a new sound was growing. A low, rhythmic thumping that didn't come from the stone. It was the sound of a helicopter. Chapter 12. The Shadow of the Past. The helicopter didn't belong to Aether Records. It belonged to the Department of Defense. The solar event that had fried Marcus Thorne's equipment had also caught the attention of the military's high-frequency research division. They weren't interested in meditation apps. They were interested in the mountain as a potential site for long-range, undetectable communication. A man named Colonel Graves walked into the diner the next morning. He didn't order a burger. He placed a government mandate on the counter. "This area has been designated a National Security Interest Zone, Graves said, his voice clipped and devoid of emotion. You have 30 days to vacate. Sarah felt a cold stone settle in her stomach. You can't do that. This land is a trust. It's a sanctuary. Sanctuaries don't override national security, Miss Hyatt, Graves replied. We've detected a frequency coming from these canyons that could disrupt global satellite arrays. We need to neutralize it or control it. Neutralize it. The words felt like a death sentence. You'll kill the mountain. Elias stepped forward, his eyes burning with slate-gray fire. If you interfere with it, the whole range will collapse. You'll bury Apache Junction under 10 million tons of rock. We've done the simulations, Mr. Jacob, Graves said, using Elias's grandfather's name as a pointed reminder of the past. The risks are acceptable. Acceptable to who? Sarah shouted. Not to the people who live here. Not to the land. Graves didn't answer. He simply turned and walked out, his boots clicking on the floorboards like a countdown. The diner fell into a stunned silence. The seekers who had been staying there looked at Sarah with fear in their eyes. What do we do? A young girl from Germany asked. We can't fight the army. Sarah looked at the iron key. She looked at Alice's guitar. She thought of the gilded dust sand and the secret of the water. We don't fight them with guns, Sarah said, her voice rising with a new, dangerous clarity. Fight them with the mountain. We're going to turn the volume up. Chapter 13, The New Generation. Sarah and Elias spent the next 3 weeks training the seekers. They didn't teach them how to protest. They taught them how to listen. They taught them the specific melodies from Elena's journal, the ones that interacted with the hydraulic valves in the whispering canyons. The mountain is a giant instrument, Sarah told the group of 50 volunteers. If we all sing the same note, at the same time, in the right places, we can create a frequency barrier that their equipment can't penetrate. We'll turn the canyons into a shield. The townspeople of Apache Junction joined in. Jacob's grandson, Leo, brought his old accordion. The local high school choir came with their sheet music. Even the old prospectors who had spent their lives looking for gold brought their harmonica and their grit. It was a beautiful, strange sight, a community of misfits and dreamers preparing for a musical war. On the 29th day, the military arrived with their bulldozers and their sonic dampeners. They set up a perimeter around the diner, their black uniforms clashing with the red rock. Colonel Graves stood at the gate, looking at the crowd of people blocking the path. This is your final warning. Disperse or be removed. Sarah stood at the front, her yellow apron bright against the dust. She held Alice's guitar. We're not leaving, she said. The mountains invited us here. They didn't invite you. Graves signaled his men. Activate the dampeners. A high-pitched, painful whine erupted from the military trucks. It was a sound wall, a device designed to incapacitate people by disrupting their inner ear. The crowd began to buckle, people clutching their heads in agony. Sarah felt the pain too, but she forced herself to stand tall. She struck a single chord on the guitar, a deep, resonant D minor that she had tuned to the frequency of the spring. Thumb. The note cut through the military whine like a hot knife through butter. Now, Sarah cried. From 50 different points in the canyons, the voices began. The seekers, the townspeople, the elders, they all sang the song of the gilded dust. The mountain responded. The water in the pipes began to surge. The gilded dust sand in the crevices began to swirl, creating a massive, glowing amber dome over the entire sanctuary. The military dampeners exploded. The electronic circuits in the bulldozers melted. The soldiers stumbled back, not from pain, but from the sheer, overwhelming beauty of the sound. It was the sound of 1,000 years of history finally being heard. Graves looked up at the glowing peaks, his face pale. He realized then that he wasn't fighting a group of hippies. He was fighting a force of nature that didn't care about national security. The mountain had spoken, and the army had no choice but to listen. Chapter 14. The Final Test. The military withdrew within 48 hours. The Amber Dome had created a localized EMP that made the area useless for their communication tests. The Superstition Mountains were declared a geologically unstable zone, and the government washed its hands of the project. But the victory came with a price. The effort of creating the resonance had exhausted the spring. The water levels in the diner began to drop. The pipes Jacob had built grew dry and silent. "We gave everything we had," Elias said, looking at the empty gauges. "The mountain is sleeping now. It's used up its energy." The diner grew quiet. The seekers, their mission accomplished, began to return to their homes, carrying the silence of Thorn back into the noisy world. Sarah and Elias were left alone in the lighthouse. "What happens if it doesn't wake up?" Sarah asked as they sat on the back porch.